record on Zoom, just so that I can confirm that the live stream's going. Setting it up. Let's make sure.
Oh, and call me Mark Christopher Nelson if you don't mind.
Yep, I do. Okay, good. So here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host and researcher, Louisa. Today is Friday, May 31st, 2024. This is GoldFish Report number 1089, and it's our Food for the Soul series. And I'm really happy to have welcome back our friend here, psychic medium, Mark C. Nelson. Mark, welcome back to the GoldFish Report. I'm so glad you're here to do another episode of Food for the Soul with me.
Louisa, it's been fun so far. Let's keep it going.
And also, we have returning, and I know everybody's going to be very happy to see her. We have returning the lovely and talented past life regression practitioner, Vicki Werner. Vicki, so good to see you, my dear. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I had to throw that in, lovely and talented. So we're talking today about, we're going to continue. We're later going to take some Q&A. Is that right, Mark?
Sure. If we have time, happy to do that.
Right, like towards the second half or towards the, of the report. But we're going to focus on talking about the other side and what's going on the other side. And we have two wonderful people here today to talk about what they know about that. Vicki is involved in doing past life regression. My goodness, what a treasure trove, really, of information that she gets about past lives and what's really going on in other incarnations. And of course, Mark having his psychic and particularly medium abilities and really being able to give us in real time some information about the other side. So who would like to start?
Say,
okay.
Ladies first.
Ladies first,
right?
Yeah.
Ladies first.
That's right.
Yes, it's, the very first message that came through when my precious husband passed away, I heard him say, be grateful we chose the right team, because there is a war in heaven. There is a war that we've all heard about. That's the war that's on this planet, but it's much bigger in heaven. And I remember hearing about that over these last few years and thinking, gosh, how does that doesn't make any sense. But Scott made it very clear, because he saw that, he says, I see what people who chose the opposite team, what they're going to endure. And he said, be very, very grateful we chose the right team. We chose God's team. And there is a lot of activity on the other side. And I think what's fascinating is when we contract for these experiences that we're enduring, we have to take into account that there's many forces that are working on our team to ensure that these things take place. And in fact, yesterday I had a regression client who her primary concern was about suffering and the lives that we struggle with and the suffering that we endure. And she was understanding that contrast does offer the ability to get more joy and more love and more happiness and more and more and more on the good when we can appreciate that when we've had the challenges in our past and the challenges that we have. And it was really awesome, because I was able to take her to the other side, and she met with Jesus and had this beautiful conversation. And one of the questions she wanted to ask Jesus was, do we have to suffer? And the message that Jesus said is suffering is not part of the agreement necessarily. It's that we choose to suffer when suffering takes place when we have challenges, and then we reflect on those challenges and we go into judgment of, should I done different? Why did this happen to me? Why am I going through this kind of stuff? And then we inflict judgment on ourselves on the way we are enduring these type of things. And that's when suffering is part of the equation. But having a challenging experience, like we've even talked about today, the challenges that we're experiencing, that doesn't necessarily equate suffering. It just means that we're going through things that need a little bit more diligence, a little bit more attention. But there is also a lot of beauty in these challenges, because it's the way that Jesus explained this yesterday, and it's similar to what even Mark has talked about in readings, but in the example that was given is when we go through the really challenging experiences, it's like pulling a rubber band back very, very tightly. And this pullback can be very uncomfortable. We feel like we're being flexed in ways that are uncomfortable. But in the releasing of that propels the growth and propels the evolution of the individual exponentially more than not having those challenges. And so, sure, on a conscious level, we would not sign up for most of what we're going through. There's just no way. And there's many times you want to say, let me gather up the dolls and dishes and wrap up this party and go home. But what we really are understanding on the spiritual level is that this is a moment in time. It seems like it's a forever process, but it is a blink in the eye in the evolution of it all, and the aspects of growth are so much more worth than what we're enduring at the time.
A
It
lot to
it
do.
it is a lot. I'm sorry. It is a lot, and it's a little bit hard um to get your mind around that. I mean, there's like physical suffering too, though. I mean, what about physical suffering?
Well, yeah, there's physical pain that,
Right.
I mean, and believe me, I signed up for the loads of that, and physical pain for sure. But again, it doesn't equate suffering. It's we can reflect on it and we can focus on that, of course. And then when we focus on it, what causes the suffering is the judgment of self, of like, why is, when we go into that victim mentality, when we go into why is this my life, why am I in so much pain?
Mm.
That's what actually causes the actual suffering, because there are people who have physical pain all the time. Scott, he had chronic pain with his hand all the time, and he was in a lot of pain. And when he gave it attention, sure, there was, there was pain, and he was aware of it. When he put his attention somewhere else and just worked with what he had to work with, then it didn't cause as much discomfort.
Can I add a little something?
Interesting. Please do. Please do.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry to hear what he went through, but one of the things that I've learned and I've asked people on the other side, our spirit guides and friends, um, why do we, what I was going to say, why do we have to, I mean, why, all of a sudden I've lost my train of thought. It was going to be good too. Wait a second.
We're
The idea
ready.
is that choice. It's like we're not really choosing to suffer. We're making choices, and as a result of some of these
Mhm.
choices, we suffer. It can be physical pain or emotional pain, mental pain. I really do think that um, no one. I mean, we come here. Oh, I know what I was going to say. We came here to learn and to love. And sometimes the learning, there's always going to be, or there can often be suffering and pain associated with that, because of the choices we make, because of the ones that we don't. So we can't ultimately I mean, free will, is going to always be there. And we need to be conscious of the fact that, all right, if I'm going through pain right now, if it's physical, is it mental? Is there anything I can learn from this? And so it's not without point. It's not without a purpose. So even if it hurts and you're wondering, is this worth living through? Try to be conscious of where you are at that given time. Are you supposed to recognize that, oh my gosh, I mean, the obvious one, the absence of pain, can be fulfilling and give, help you wake up to be conscious on a ordinary day, you know, and also to the idea that how can I make myself what experiences? I mean, it comes down to, is it a lesson? What am I supposed to get out of this lesson? I don't know of anyone who purposely loves to sign up for lessons. I don't think there's too many people that do that, but just see it as something that we're trying to go beyond the theoretical and to put our our strength, our faith, and our belief system into practice. And those by doing that, we can overcome pain. We can get past some of the short-term difficulties and suffering that comes with it. So I just say try to see where you want to be and how you can get there in spite of what might be considered pain.
Yeah, I agree with that, because then when we look back on the challenges that we've had historically in our own lives, we can feel very, I mean, it can bring our energy down. That's another message that comes back a lot, is focusing on those pains and those hurts and the rejection, and we all have had times where we reflect on how somebody mistreated us, or when we endured a really challenging time, and focusing on those experiences can drop our energy. But if we shift by looking and reflecting on those experiences and come from a space of, what did I learn? What was the lesson involved? What was the purpose of the bigger picture? Then you become the master and the student simultaneously. And that's the most delicious part of the human experience, when we can have challenges and we can learn through those challenges, but then our consciousness can expand on a bigger level and say, okay, what's the bigger picture that's playing out? And then we can become the master of our own evolution as well.
I gotta just say this too. It's like arguably the worst experience I had in my life when my dad was murdered when I was a kid. Um, how do I, how did I get past that? How did I continue to be a conscious feeling person, even as a little kid? And I learned things. I also learned that I developed defense systems to get through this that carried into adulthood that I needed to change, because the same defenses a kid might put up in order to survive intense emotional problems don't necessarily serve you as an adult. So you don't want to let what could be signatures of these terrible life experiences, don't let them define you. And through this experience, I also learned that I have psychic ability. I was put in the front row for some of that. But there's just, I keep learning from some of that difficulty, and it keeps coming back that stay awake. Don't hide from certain things. There, you were safe. All these things that we think we know, but we learn them again and again and again. So if the purpose of some pain and suffering is to teach us some profound life lessons, that may be the price that we have to sometimes pay.
Okay. Dude, can I weigh in on here for a second?
No, no,
No, we're
no.
just
This
gonna
is
keep
your show.
bouncing.
You can't say nothing.
Okay. Um, just to let you know, I'm just trying to post to the Facebook groups that we're live right now. So,
Okay.
so I can check on that. Okay. So since we're talking about this topic of pain, of challenges, of what causes it, and how these challenges, I'll say, have we notice how we all have different ones. We all have different challenges where, it's like a thumbprint. It's like it's as unique. Our challenges are as unique as each one of us individuals are. So, like our thumbprint. So, well, they say no two are alike. Um, having said that, yes. So I think it's pretty fair to say that we're here. I think you can say we're here for soul growth, but I really think that it's really a test from our Heavenly Father to see who's worthy of being in heaven. And having said that, and I don't mean this in a religious sense, we can talk about God without talking about religion, because every religion has a God. So, I mean, the ultimate God, the ultimate creator, okay? The Father in heaven is really what I'm referring to. Because heaven, right, should be this place of perfection. It should be peace. It should be love. It should be, I mean, this is what I understand, right? As it is in heaven, on earth as it is in heaven. So heaven is a place like Garden of Eden. It is a place of tremendous wisdom and knowledge. But people who, know how to use that, they don't use it for the wrong purpose. The souls is what I'm saying, right? So it's not exploited. It's not taken advantage of. It's not used for capitalism. It's not used for, control or power or greed, nothing like that.
Mhm.
So if we have this most divine, perfect place, can you imagine being God for a minute and just saying, you know, I have to put these souls through a test to see who's going to be loyal to me, because I already know how many went with the fallen angels. And if you want to be corrupted, you're not coming into heaven. So how else is God going to know whose souls are worthy of coming into heaven without the challenges that we have to face and overcome? And do they justify, breaking the commandments? Does it justify committing crimes? And that's really between you and God. I'm not here to say what it is for you. I know what it is for me. But I ultimately think that it's all going to lead back to our Heavenly Father, all of it, because that's what it's all about. It's what we do here in the physical. And Jesus said, right, don't love this life so much that you lose sight of our purpose here, of the spiritual realm, the fact that that this is a test, because
Yeah.
everything we do is being judged by our Heavenly Father, every single thing we do. And that's why every day we should be praying for forgiveness for the things that are, less savory, less holy, I should say. And it's a tough place to live. It's a tough place to live without, I don't think we're perfect. I don't think God's looking for us to be perfect.
No.
I think he's looking for us to be good. Good. Remember in the
One thing that I
Bible it
want to
says,
add to that, though,
yeah,
Louisa, is that as a baseline, I think it's really important for people to see from the perspective of that Earth is one of the most dense areas of evolution. But when people not, depending on somebody's capacity to think broader here, I mean, we all at some point thought of God as a guy with a staff and a long beard and white robe and standing there. And when he was in a bad mood, made a decision that we could be judged against. But we have to really shift that perception a little bit, that we chose to come here for our own growth. It's not like God was like in a bad mood. It's like you go down to the densest lesson possible and go have all of those challenges. We volunteer for that for our own evolution. And then we also have to look at the fact that heaven is not a singular place. I know different religions have different realms of that they refer back to, but there's many different levels, and there's many levels of heaven. So we don't just leave this and go to a place that we all have that possibility. It's not a in and out or this or this. I mean, there are levels of density and there's levels of evolution. So that's one thing that I think it's important to kind of set that framework, and then what you see on the other side and what your potential is on the other side. Even from my perspective of having a near-death experience, and we hear about people who have these different various near-death experiences, and they're vastly different. Nobody has the exact same thing. There's because of Raymond Moody's work and because of different researchers, and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is another one, that then they have these there's certain guideposts that are, if you fit this, there's 11 levels of this criteria, that if you fit 5 or 6 of those, then it's classified as a near-death experience. Out of those 11, I had 9 of them in my own experience, but they all have different aspects. And some people go through the tube of light. Some people, meet loved ones. Some, most people have a past life. They have a review of their life. Most people will see more of their purpose, and many people will come back with more gifts. But when we think about the lessons that we're here, like when Mark says we're here to learn, love, and to learn, we are here to love because we're giving conflict and resistance to the love of what we feel in that other realm. And so we here get to practice and learn to love even when it's not comfortable. And the lessons that we are experiencing are lessons that we signed up for. If we have to look at it, that we just kind of knock on the principal's door, aka God, or our oversoul, or the council of elders that are. I mean, I love information about the council of elders, and I would love to share more about that. but we volunteer for these experiences because we do our own reflection. And this is an area that we say, this is an area that I have a shadow, or this is what I want to expand upon, or this is a challenge I want to have so that I can learn this specific lesson. And the lessons are always going to be some level of love, but there's going to be lessons about persistence. There's lessons about determination. One of the lessons that I came to learn that was very interesting in a regression that was revealed is we think that working hard means that we arrive at that end result of that God sees us in good favor, and then we get some kind of trophy for all the suffering that we endured, so we can show up battered and beaten and say, look, I endured all of this horror, so reward me with good measure. But working hard doesn't necessarily mean we have soul progress. We can spin our wheels forever and ever and have a lot of challenges, and sometimes those challenges can set us back, because if we go into the self-judgment, we get angry, we get bitter, we start blaming other people for why we have the challenges that we have. We could have had the same challenges as the person next to us, but that person reflected back and go, oh gosh, I learned a lot through that experience. And many things that we learn about other people's behavior, and one of the things I teach my children all the time is, one of the best teachers are people showing us what we don't want, and people showing us how we won't behave, people being who they are. And then you're like, that's definitely not the direction I'm going to go. And so we can reflect on other people's behaviors and actions, and self-reflect and self-correct. But when we learn the lesson of the experience, and we can again see that the bigger message about why we signed up for those kind of things, you can have an enormous amount of growth. But just challenges and brute force and making ourselves do things and then showing the world how our life is just heavier and harder than anybody else's. And believe me, I'm in this world right now, these last few months, I'm like, yeah, I get the trophy for like the hardest life right now. It doesn't mean forever, but right now, these last few months have been incredibly challenging. And I still cry every day. I still drop to my knees in overwhelm. I still call Mark going, how in the world am I going to overcome this moment? It's a lot. And I am faced with new challenges every single day when I'm scratching my head going, I don't know how to do this, but somehow I'm going to find the answer. And that can be very overwhelming, but I keep moving forward. And one of the lessons I came to learn in this lifetime that I'm aware of is persistence, that I can still have persistence, and I can still move forward. And I clearly have that lesson right now.
Yeah, and it has to do with free will too. I mean, this is all about free will choice, because as Vicky says, right, we have different. I wasn't implying, Vicky, just so you know, that there was like one heaven. I mean, I'm just trying to kind of give a 40,000-foot view on this, right?
Right.
That's
Yes.
all. Like ultimately, not now getting there, we have all these stages and steps and lessons and things to go through. But I think that like ultimately this is the big picture, and that it is to be worthy of going there instead of going to the underworld. I don't want to go there. There's
One thing,
plenty in the underworld, right?
let me add this too, is that I don't think any of us are going to be an expert on the other side until we get there.
Right.
These are all thoughtful examinations of where we and what we think it is. Okay, and I'm teasing you a little bit, but I mean truly, I mean I have spirit explaining, because I'll say, where are you? What are you doing? You know, you're just not sitting around in a cloud, strumming a harp, waiting for the next life to show up as if it were a bus. I'll take
Yes.
that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the 920 back to Cincinnati. Okay, we're going there. No, it's not like that at all. In fact, I really do think that once we're on the other side, I've made this analogy, and I think it holds water, that the other side is like a class where you take a lecture and you formulate these ideas about, well, I think I could be more loving in under these circumstances, given these challenges. I could learn more. I could strive to be, I would say, more Christ-like. I mean, or more, whatever your idea of a holy and elevated, wonderful being. So that's something. But when you come to Earth, it's like, okay, this is where you get slapped. And everyone has a plan until, Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. All right. Coming to Earth can often be a bit of a punch in the mouth. It's like, okay, all right, do I still really want to love everyone? Bam. Okay. Well, that's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. So
Mm,
I see so much value. You can't really develop, I think, as a soul until you come here and figure things out. Oh, and I was going to add to this too. It's like you can take a lot of lumps and you can get beat up and bruised, and when you arrive on the other side, they're going to say, "Look what I went through." It says, "Yeah, but what did you learn from it?" You know.
right. Right. Well, that's
I
what Vicky
learned a
said.
lot. Let me tell you. Don't do this. Don't
Right.
do that. Don't trust that kind of person. Be giving here. I blew it there. So I do think that this idea that a life review, I think that we actively participate in it. Also, too, I got to tell you, I think that if I had to do my life review right now, here, I'd have to bare my soul about everything I do and don't like about myself, it would be incomplete probably because I have this ego that gets in the way that's connected to my body. I would like to be taller. No, I'd like to be a lot taller. No, no, you don't get, I mean, but just the idea that once we pass and we let go of these, I'll call them our bodies, these meat suits, that I think a lot of our ego
Mm,
slips away with it so that we're more of a pure mind, a pure consciousness of what our soul, a truer reflection of what our soul is. And then at that point, we can be more objective and more clear. It's like I I I failed here, or I didn't go as far as I could have, but I did do pretty well in this instance. And so I feel like that as a soul, I did evolve here. I did overcome some things that would be challenging, that were challenging, and I feel like I've done something better. I've moved things forward in a way that would be pleasing to God and myself and all of us. So
mm.
I like to think of each of us too as being an aspect of God. I mean, I'm not God. But maybe I'm a glimmer of one little aspect, tiny bit on my best days. It's kind of anyway. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And Vicky, I wanted to go back to what Vicky was saying about you can spend, and you both said this, you can spend a lifetime and not learn anything. And that's the sad part of it. That we all know, sadly, I think we all know someone like that. And it's a shame because it's usually pretty tough for them because they have to keep repeating the same experiences, even though they're different people or different situations, but the lesson's the same, right, Vicky?
Yeah, in fact, I do occasionally I'll have clients and that have experiences where, when we touch down into a lifetime, we go to key points of that lifetime so we can get an overview. And occasionally somebody will say, "Oh, like it's feel very, very primitive, and I'm in this tribe, and it feels like our skin is black, and we have these very primitive." And then the next thing that then I'm like, "Okay, stay as this individual. We're going to progress to another day that's important." But and then all of a sudden they're like, "Okay, there's a lot of sand. I see pyramids, and like I see a lot of ornamentation." And so when people go into different lifetimes. I always call it jumping. And when they jump into a different life and then they jump into another life, it's the oversoul or the higher self saying, "You've been playing this game a lot. So we're just going to show you haven't learned the lesson yet. You've come and tried it again. You didn't do it. So it's kind of showing that individual came again to keep working on a theme, a specific theme, or an area where they just didn't master it yet. And
Right.
so the higher self is showing that, like, see how many times you've done this. Let's
Mhm.
get this part. Let's
Right.
start moving forward.
And I'm not saying that, with any judgment. I've certainly made many of the same mistakes myself, and fortunately I did, figure out a few of them, right? And I'm not saying it with judgment. Oh, we all know someone like that. And I say that with a heavy heart because it breaks our heart to know to have a loved one who you can see continues to make the same mistake. And no matter how much you try to help them, they just don't want to take your advice. They don't want any help, and there's nothing you can do. It's really back to the free will issue, right? So just to let you know, we have some live viewers here who we do have someone with a question. So if you whenever you're ready, if you wanted to take questions, we may still chat a little bit more and then
Sure.
take questions. It's up to you, Mark and Vicky.
I can fire away, and anyone who gets a feeling or wants to respond as well, either of you guys, something shows up as a hit, holler, but I'm happy to take some questions.
Okay, we have Maggie, who is asking about a house that she went to go see a couple of weeks ago, whether it's something that she is for, I guess, her highest good for to purchase this, if it's in her cards there.
Gotta tell you, I feel like I see that house being pulled away, pulled off the market, not being made available. I feel like that there's an obstacle that is far beyond what you're dealing with. So you're not getting it because you didn't do something. It feels like it's happening on the other side. So I would say, as much as this house may tug at your heartstrings, be prepared to look at other properties. I feel like that this was a warmer upper for you. I would say it's a warmer upper. If this doesn't, and again, I'm sorry, but it feels like there's going to be something that occurs outside of your capacity to control it, and it will not be in your hands. I'm sorry.
Okay, okay. Maggie, I hope that was, the answer for your highest good, dear. And if it's not meant for you, and you certainly don't, want to become entangled in a problem with it, um, even though you have your heart set on it, you certainly want to know beforehand, right? So I hope
Right.
that helped you. We also have Dan in the chat room. Did you have a question, Dan? I think you said you had one and I didn't see it. Maybe I missed it. Um, can you type that in?
Can I go back just to Maggie for 1 second?
Yeah,
I
go right
still
ahead.
think that you'll find a house that does meet your requirements, that does make you happy. It's just the idea that you may have to reset some of the things you really want. This is not the end of the road not getting that house. It's just this is like I'm calling it a warmer up because something else is coming.
Something else is coming. Okay, that's something else is coming. She says it's okay. She said, thanks so much. So Dan has a question about um, humanitarian projects and groups that he's involved in, and he wants to know if they're going to be successful.
I feel like that every bag of food, every bit of medicine helps. I feel like I'm seeing him get very involved, maybe boots on the ground to a degree. I would say that every gesture that relieves a small bit of suffering is a success. So it makes me think that it isn't going to be solving an issue. It feels like you solve a few people's issues and immediate issues. In fact, um, focusing on the benefit of fewer people as opposed to more greater numbers, you can make a more
Mm.
dedicated impact, more significant impact on the lives of a few if you take that perspective that I'm going to help these people change their lives.
Okay, because the question was, will my humanitarian projects and group be successful? So that's what that
I
was
would
the
say
actual
yes.
question. Yeah, he retyped it, yeah. And if that's your
It looks like they will be successful. Just keep their focus fairly, don't try to boil the ocean. Make it a more focused approach to solving issues, and your humanitarian efforts will bear fruit.
Oh, that's wonderful news. Yeah, that's wonderful. So okay, I'm just waiting for more people to watch. If anyone else, Mark is taking questions, psychic questions, or perhaps if you have a loved one that's crossed over and you'd like to connect with them, you'd like to get a message, please put the question in the chat. In the meantime, Vicky, I've had a past life regression with you, and I thought you were really an amazing coach. And I looked at you as a coach, um, because you helped me get where I needed to go, but I did it on my own. I didn't, so it's not like you were um,
In planning or
you weren't
programming,
telling me,
yes.
well, you weren't
Yeah.
telling me where to go. I went, you know how to help people get there on their own, to help, as a coach would in a team, you know? So, it still was up to me, just like it's still up to the players. So, you know, to get, to achieve their goal. And, I was very impressed because this is, isn't this QHHT? And a lot of people know about that, like a quantum healing, where you access this state of consciousness, this state of, I would say, uh, almost like hypnosis in a sense, like, Dolores Cannon.
Yeah.
Could you explain that a little bit? So, because I know a
I
lot of people know about Dolores Cannon and could relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, I trained originally with Dolores Cannon in 2007. Very fascinating. So yeah, quantum healing, QHHT is quantum healing hypnosis technique. But that is it's one of the modalities. I can't do her work specifically on over Zoom though. When I have an online client, I have to adjust. And because I trained with Brian Weiss too, another name that's a lot of people are familiar with, and I'm very familiar with Michael Newton's work too. Those are the big names that people are very familiar with. But so yeah, when I have clients that are over Zoom, then I have to do some adjustments. But I do my own thing anyway. I've really, in the last 17 years and hundreds of clients, I find what works for me. I personally, when I have a client who is very capable to go really, really deep, I give that opportunity. And especially if somebody who's done it before, then I love to take that client to the spirit realm. Most people do just the regression, and then they'll have a kind of a Q&A where they talk to the higher self. Dolores Cannon's work was the subconscious. It doesn't really matter what word we use. A lot of stuff, super conscious, the higher self, the divine. It's we're accessing the infinite knowledge that is being available, and that's that. I always say that regression's fantastic because it'll give us an understanding of what's going on in our current life. If we did a regression now, you would have a very different session because your world is different right now. But then you follow up with the questions that somebody wants to address. And I always say, whoever you revere as a higher power of some sort, then the examples that I give is, if you had a one-on-one with Jesus, what kind of questions would you want to know? And like, why did I have this kind of experience? Why did I endure these kind of challenges? What's the nature of this relationship? All of that kind of stuff. And that's what people really enjoy, getting that information.
I have a
Absolutely.
quick question. Oh, can I just jump in?
Yeah,
So
sure.
and I've had a session with you too, and it was very informative. But for people who don't understand, let's say, what could you help someone do? I'm going to do this session. We'll do this session together. Can you give an example of how someone learned something from a past life regression and then applied it to their current life?
So yes, so like as an example of my client yesterday, she I will always say that people will always go to a lifetime that is related to the questions that they come with. I give a homework. I always tell them, let it kind of percolate in the background for a couple of days. Because if I say, what kind of questions would you want to know? We all kind of like, oh, I don't know what I would have to ask. And then if you just kind of sit with it, cooking dinner, and you're like, oh gosh, yeah, why did I have that experience? Or why am I struggling in this area of my life? Why are finances something that's so hard for me to overcome? So whatever is the theme of the questions that people want to know, either it'll be usually like one of the top ones are always going to be relationships, or it's going to be health, or it's going to be finances. Those are the ones that we always think that's the umbrella that's all of us have a shadow in some form. But you'll go to a lifetime that you saw those conditions take place. So this individual that I had yesterday, a lot of her questions was around the suffering that she's had in this lifetime. And so she went into a lifetime in the 1800s in Ireland, and there was a lot of suffering. And when we all know Ireland, there's a lot of war, a lot of famine. People literally survived on potatoes, and there's just some really heavy energy over there. But the lifetime was very, very challenging, and they had to keep enduring through really horrific obstacles. And the way that her life ended was she and her husband had a baby, and they were heading to the Americas. Her brother was sent before, and the whole ship, they ran out of provisions, and so her milk had dried up. Her baby was dying. That by the time they made it, her husband was too weak to even get out, barely made it, and so they looked everywhere. There was no food. There was no, and they literally starved to death and froze to death. And those are really challenging experiences, but the lessons she learned is there's still one of the things that was given is there were still beautiful moments in that lifetime, even though the lifetime was, I mean, if we just talked about just the layers of all the suffering, we could really focus on that. But the message from the spirit realm was there's still beauty in all of the challenging moments. And then again, she talked about the suffering quite a bit. So the lessons that people can learn is, and again, I don't ever have to give them that lesson. The spirit, I mean, their higher self will tell them exactly what that lesson was. And the two questions I always ask at the end of every lifetime, I always say, leave the body. I always take somebody through the death experience for a number of reasons. People have a lot of fear of death. And if you've had a near-death experience or whatever, you're like, let me sign up to be the first in line. But you lose the fear of death because you see how beautiful that process is. And when you leave the body and you can reflect back in that lifetime, I always ask, when you reflect back to this person that you see in the bed, or when you see that individual, what do you feel was that lesson that you learned from that life? And they'll give a message. And then we talk to the higher self, and usually it'll be a different message of what was. And so the two questions I always ask, every life has lessons and purpose. What was the lesson that you learned, and what was the purpose of that lifetime?
That's very good, Vicky, because I mean, who can you have these conversations with, right? It's uncomfortable for a lot of people, just even among even family members, but not someone who can kind of give you insight on it. And that's even a great bonus. I mean, so that's why they come to you. We have another question, Mark, if you would like to take the next question.
Please.
Is that good? Okay. So we have Sunny here, who is saying that she is going to be she's wanting to travel to Scotland in June, but she's worried about world events and even her health. Any insight whether she should go or wait until next year?
I would say go in June, not October. Go sooner. That's the advice I'm being given. So I also feel like Sunny's gonna have a good trip. I would go while the weather is at its warmest. Be prepared to come back. One of the things I want to ask her to do, though, is to take really good care of foot and ankle health. I feels like that she's going to want to take on challenging hikes and walks. Please be prepared to either have a wrap for an ankle, feels like it may be a little achy. So just make sure that she's right. Bring sensible shoes in your trip. Maybe have a wrap for your ankle or leg, something to help you manage any kind of tenderness, and be prepared to go have a wonderful time. All right. I see her plugging ahead, going forward, and having a blast.
Well,
Yes, and on another note, I'll be
okay.
there too. So maybe we'll see each other.
Oh, wonderful, Vicky. That's excellent. Yeah, maybe you will. You never know. Family reunion.
But yeah,
Never
I'm
know.
going to Ireland and Scotland in 2 weeks. So yeah. And I already asked Mark about the safety of all of that too. So I'll
Yeah.
confirm everything that he just said.
Now you're saying, Mark, not October. So you're seeing things kind of becoming unglued around then?
I think that we're going to see more, we'll say, tumultuous times, perhaps some financial issues in the world. I would say that there is a heightened risk for war and or fighting, not only outside of the United States, but it could be a pretty significant event where there's a terrorist attack, I'm just feeling like at home, we all need to be conscious of where we're going to be and when we're going to come back. I just feel like that um, we're going to see more financial issues, perhaps some financial meltdown. I think that there's going to be a lot of tension around these elections. I don't think anything is going to go easily, and I feel like that there will be unexpected complications. So I would say if you want to travel, go sooner. And also too, I reserve the right to be wrong. Sometimes I'm going to be wrong, but I do have a pretty strong feeling that as the year rolls towards its conclusion, we are going to see some troubles that we have to all be conscious of how we might handle them in, say, some extraordinary circumstances. To me, this means have extra cash, maybe have a little extra food. It isn't the end of times, I don't see, but it could be stressful. So have a little bit of a backup plan or some padding.
Well, Trump has also said that, posted on, I think, Truth Social, that this is the final battle. Now, I'm not going to really comment on that. It's just that, as everybody knows, and I don't mean to necessarily bring politics into this, but this is regarding world affairs at this moment. So everybody, a lot of people were on the Trump train, myself included. Okay, and initially, until I really realized what was unfolding. Um, I do think that again, it is biblical what's unfolding. It is falling within the parameters of Revelation. I have to agree. I mean, I have to say that I agree that from where I'm sitting, a lot of events are falling within the lines of Revelation. That means that there's going to be a beast system introduced, and lo and behold, wouldn't you know? Oh, I saw this coming a mile away. So Elon Musk said today that if you wanted to continue to have a blue verified account, that you are going to have like biometric ID done and background checked by some Israeli company. Well, what do you know? It's that social credit system. So, the mark of the beast, if you want to look at the Bible as a handbook and not as a religious book, not make it into a religion, but look at it as, a handbook, and maybe there's prophecy in there, right? That the mark of the beast isn't necessarily a mark, but more of a system, if you look at it that way. So, and it could be literally, a chip implanted. I mean, it literally could be, right? That, and if you look at Revelation, right? So the beast system gets ushered in really without anybody noticing, sadly. And so there's this false peace that's going to come after this a time of tribulation, right? I think that's what you're describing, some tribulations, right?
Yes.
And so it's pretty biblical. And so, but it's a false peace, it's a false light system. And that's what they stressed in the Bible, was that there was going to be a false light. This was going to be the great deception. Not like we haven't already had a great deception with the, what,
Which one do you want? We're getting deceived left and right, it seems. So
exactly. But this is even greater, because Jesus, when Jesus was tempted in the desert by Satan, Satan said, I'll give you everything, all the fame and fortune and wealth and, whatever you want, power, whatever, if you just worship me. And Jesus never said it's not yours to give. So the thing is that he even said he was the prince of this world. So if we really understand who runs this world, then we really understand that this is really the ultimate test of our souls. Okay. Not just, our growth, because we can't have an experience here without having soul growth. That's absolutely part of the deal. Vicky, I agree. But it looks like this great deception. Now, there are reports. I mean, we do know right now that there's a lot of escalation going on with regard to, I mean, just today we had the USS Ronald Reagan, reportedly, I could not verify this, but it was hit by missiles. So it was attacked. We also have, the Ukraine saying that they're going to use all NATO forces to attack Russia. One of the residences of Vladimir Putin was destroyed. It was on fire. It was bombed. It was whatever. We also have so supposedly the Houthis are the ones who bombed the USS. So they're really trying hard. We have Kim Jong-un sending off some fireworks show. I don't know why it was like a whole row of these rockets. Looks like it was just really theater. And it is, in a sense, all theater. So this is the Great Awakening, and this was supposed to be the time when everybody wakes up, I mean, at some point, and it's like that movie White Squall, if you saw it, where these boys started out on this sailing journey and they were boys, and when they came back, they were men, because the trials and tribulations that they went through, and like Vicky was saying, and you don't know how you're going to survive it. You don't know if you will survive it. You don't know how you're going to get through it, and you're not even sure you made it until it changes you. And that's really what these times are going to be doing to us. They are going to be challenging us in that same way. And are we going to be able to, because I think eventually the whole question is, people have to wake up to this deception and who really runs the planet, because they got too corrupted by the material aspect of this world and completely abandoned their spiritual nature, their soul need, that they have the soul, and the soul the soul belongs to our Heavenly Father, right? That's who created us. So that's where you see that spark of light come in when there's conception. So it is going to be a trying time. I'm glad that you're able to put a little time frame on this. And it's just, it's all related. I mean, here we go back to Vicky saying, talking about suffering and struggling and, going to the past life that is most relevant to the issues that you're dealing with right now. That was amazing. Just to learn that, Vicky, is like, wow, that was interesting. Don't you think, Mark?
Well, I do. Also too, when you're conscious of like, I keep hitting the same, running into the same issues in my life. Is there a reason if I take a step back higher, go back and see my soul arc? I've learned that from past life regression that, yeah, I've had a trouble. I think that I had a problem where I drowned a couple of times. And in this life, I've almost drowned twice, and I had asthma. So I had a couple of, it's like, what am I supposed to learn from this? To me, it's like become more conscious of uh, situational awareness, try to avoid being in a place where I'm trapped. And those are just kind of the superficial things. At a higher level, I would say, um, don't be afraid, you know, conquer, don't let your fear keep you from being the person that you want to be or that you think you can be. Examine the source of the fear. Is it real? Is it justified? And then overcome it.
We have another question in the chat. If you want to go to that, then we'll go back to Vicky. Let's see. One second. So we have Sunny, who is asking, I'm sorry, Susan, who is asking, am I connecting with any spirit beings in my prayers or mantras? That's Susan Anderson's asking that question.
Say absolutely. I would say, I get this, by the way, I feel like that you're dealing with, or you're being visited or blessed by more than one spirit. I feel like that our loved ones are different. They're our spiritual, they can be guides. They're only angels, I think, that have never been human. But I feel like that I want to say grandmother, grandmother, grandmother. I get this kind of a lacy shawl or something that the lady would have over her head, over her shoulders. She feels like that she's very supportive. And she's telling me to tell you that I'm listening to you. I am listening to you. I think that Susan sometimes is wondering whether people listen to her. Well, grandmother does. I also feel like that she's being guided to make certain choices that are going to cause her to make a shift in the some direction of her life. Feels like a real, I'm going to shift to this direction now. I'm going to move. I'm going to change my career. They feel like she's on the cusp of a couple of big changes, and she should be prepared for that. If she's fearful, keep listening because her prayers will be answered.
Sorry, that was on mute. Juggling all these things.
I hope that was
So that was very nice. Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, sorry. It's had all these different adjustments going on. Let's see. Um,
Can I add one thing
Su-
to the prayer
sure.
aspect that he just barely shared?
Susan,
Um,
Just
Oh,
put a
go ahead.
comment in this section if you heard that. Okay, go ahead, Vicky.
Yeah, one of my clients this week was asking about prayer, and we've heard, maybe many of us have heard the language about prayer is asking, meditating is receiving, and all of that kind of stuff. But prayer comes up a lot in my sessions, and one specifically that came up this week was why it's so important to begin our day in prayer and to end our day in prayer. Is that there's so much in the outer world that is a distraction. And I think that's one of the biggest things we're all here to overcome, is this massive level of distraction that is being shown. And you can see that the opposite energy is really pushing a lot of distraction towards us. Algorithms that are keeping us attached to social media. We pick up our phone within a minute of waking up. We have all of these different apps, so much distraction. And this distraction has taken us away from our path. It's taken us away from, I mean, how many people can claim that, like, oh gosh, I thought I'd be on for 15 minutes, an hour and a half later, they're still scrolling social media and not accomplishing anything of what they set out for that day. But one of the things that was said by the divine is the divine is always there, that we never are going to be abandoned, although many times we have times where we feel that we are abandoned. But it was us that disconnected from the divine, not the divine disconnecting from us. So one beauty of prayer is it realigns our attention to the higher realms, to the divine, to the God source energy, and putting our attention right back where it belongs, so that it can sustain us. And we start our day in prayer, and we align to and open our heart and keep our heart, that a lot of that attention really is through the heart rather than the mind. But opening our heart in the love of God that is within us, then it can give us the fortitude to engage in a more loving way in our life, in a higher way. And then we end our day in prayer, in gratitude, and gratitude for the opportunities and the lessons and the relationships that we have. So that's just another element. And one thing that I've been teaching, I've taught clients a number of times that came through for me about prayer, that was really a beautiful, beautiful thing for me specifically. And I've shared it a number of times because I think there's a lot of richness to it, that we all can understand about prayer and bowing our head in prayer, regarding being humble, or servitude, or acquiescing to a higher power. And a lot of times cultures will do that because they acquiesce to a higher authority, or as a respect thing from a space of being humble. But what really came through for me is, we think prayer is the words that we say. So some people get really flowery, or they have to say 15-minute prayers because they're like, okay, I'm going to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, what God will pick up. So I'll just pray for everything. But prayer is intention of the heart. So it's not necessarily the words that we use, it's the energy that we're conveying in the heart. And so to me, when we drop out of this busy analytical mind, when we drop our head down into this humble nature, what we're doing is we're dropping our attention out of this busy analytical mind that is in judgment of ourself or of others, and we're entering that sacred heart space. And that's where the magic of the prayer resides.
Yeah, I think, oh, Vicky, you're so prolific. I love listening to you. You just have a beautiful way. See, this is what I mean. Vicky has such a beautiful way of, like, almost wordsmithing a very difficult topic. And this is what I loved about her not coaching, guidance, I would say, during the regression. You're so insightful. I could see just what an amazing counterpart, you and Scott were together. What a great team you were together. You just have this, really beautiful way of describing these things, Vicky. And it's refreshing, and it's really lovely to hear. And I loved how you said prayer is the intention of the heart. This is what I think is the biggest challenge, is the evil. And talk about it in the Bible about the heart turning cold. And that's what I think that's what we're being tested through. This is part of our test here, is that, a lot, so here's the story of, like, Maleficent, right? Or like how she had this great love at one point and she was hurt so bad that she was what is it called? She was uh angst or something, you know, and she turned to the dark. I mean, look, it's the same story, Darth Vader, right? I mean, they turned, what causes somebody who starts out in the light, you know, and I just mean this, and I don't mean this to be all, you know, foo-foo and stuff. I mean literally have that light, that spark that creates that soul. And I have a video of it. What changes somebody? What turns their heart cold? And this is what, you know, God doesn't want to see coming into heaven. I think this is what our test is, and it refers to in the Bible many times about people. This is why we're all under judgment, right? It's the people turn their wicked ways, the corrupted of the corrupted, right? And this is why we're under judgment. We're having tribulation, and you know, we're seeing this happen right now.
I was going to say, I think that
Go
that
ahead.
critical moment is a loss of faith. If you really think that God no longer hears you and that your actions no longer matter in a meaningful way, that's a loss of faith. By the way, and I just want to tag on one thing to what Vicky said, is that if you prayed to your loved ones, for your loved ones, be them if they've crossed, they always hear you. Your loved ones hear you. Your prayers are not just for you. They're towards God with an intention, and they're also heard by God. And I think the people that you were praying for, or the people you're praying for.
All right, Vicky, your website is, let's see, is it .com?
Yep.
Okay, I know. Yes, it is. Let me screen share Vicky's website first, ladies first. And so this is your website here. Let me see.
Yeah, I have some changing to do now that some shifts are going to happen with health and longevity, but yes, that's what it is.
Okay, very good. And if they want to book a past life regression, they can do that right here. So this is vickywerner.com.
Yeah, I think they go to contact and then they can reach out to me and then I connect them.
in
Yeah.
contact. Okay, so this is what the contact page looks like here then. So I will put this link in the description section of the video because we're coming to the end of the hour. Let me just double check one more time if we have any other questions. No, we don't have any more questions right now. It's just going to take a little bit of time. I was a little bit late getting this posted, getting the promotion posted. Had a little interruption before the report today, so it's been a heck of a day. Now, Mark's website, let's just share Mark's website as well. And so if you wanted to book an appointment with Mark, you can do so. And I definitely recommend you booking an appointment. These are great experiences, folks. And right now, you know, I know where our souls are looking for answers, our souls are looking for insight, and that will help us grow. That'll help us heal if that's what you need right now, and grow if that's also what you're looking for. And I love that you talked about, you know, this humility, this sense of humility, Vicky, and you're absolutely right. But before I get back to that, this is Mark's website. Mark, did you want to make any comments about the website or where they could book, where do they book your
Well, it's
readings?
marknelsonmedium.com. Then if you go to readings and gifts, which is right in the center, I'm pointing at
Right.
it.
Okay.
You can go there, you can purchase
Find.
and that's where I am. You can also
Okay.
buy gift certificates.
Okay, wonderful. That's so nice. Yeah, I did that. It's easy to buy for a gift for somebody else who you really think you know, is in need. And so let me just check one more time. Thank you for being in the live chat. It was great to see you all. I know we didn't have as many. I don't know if we're being censored still, but I just think it takes a little bit longer to build up to this. But Vicky, what you were saying just before we close about us being so busy that we don't even have time to have that private, that you know, to take care of the things we need to really, we stay on top of and even live a life with purpose when we're so distracted. I mean, it is, you know, these devices do have have a bite taken out of the apple.
Yeah.
Is that not our warning?
Yeah.
Should
Right,
be.
Vicky?
All by design, my friend.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, in closing, Vicky, do you have any final comments or anything you'd like to say before we um sign off for the evening?
Yeah, I'll share one more message
Oh,
regarding loss.
hold on, we
Um,
can't hear your audio is a little can you check your audio?
really? Can you hear
Try it
me
again.
okay now?
Okay, now it's okay. It's better. Yeah. For a minute there, it was like you were underwater for a minute.
Oh gosh. Okay. So regarding loss, we wonder why challenges happen, and when we lose a loved one, how it's very painful. And of course, I'm swimming in that right now as well. But and I've had quite a few losses this last few years. It's been really, really, I mean, we've all had some loss in the last few years, but I've had some pretty heavy ones. And um, one of the messages that comes through a lot regarding loss and when we lose loved ones is it deepens our focus on what's really important in life. We don't take life for granted anymore, and then
Mm.
we start reflecting about ourself and how we show up, and we reflect about the choices that we're making. And so as painful as loss is, it is one of the greatest teachers.
And that is spoken so eloquently by one of our steel magnolias here. So
A
who could
lovely
only
and
say it in
talented
such a
Vicky,
way?
let me just say.
Absolutely.
Who's only 11 weeks out from losing my husband. So that's, you know, that's a bitter drink to drink right now for me.
It
But
is. It
um
is.
but I am grateful for um a number of things. And I will say one of the things that I have learned for myself is 2 days ago, well, 2 nights ago, I went back to sleep. I wake up a lot at night, but I just laid there at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was just immediately went into this conversation with Scott. And you know, like Mark says this a lot, and I think there's a lot of truth to this, that pray for your loved ones on the other side. They, you know, pray for them as well. We think that they've arrived and they're like, oh, well, they don't need our prayers, but they do. They do need our prayers, and they do hear our messages. And I know specifically my loved ones hear my conversations with them, because when I've had readings with Mark, he specifically tells me the things they hear from me, and
Mhm.
I really do appreciate that. But I just had this, you know, of course, when there's a lot of pain and a lot of challenges and hurt and overwhelm and all of these things that we have to overcome and endure, when you lose a spouse and a family member, it can really rattle our chains quite a bit. But I just had that moment where as I was drifting back to sleep, I was like, I was so grateful for so many things that Scott did for me and created for me and taught me and shared with me and expanded my I mean, one of the greatest things about him is he was so far out there that I had a huge playing field to play in because I was
Yeah.
never going to be as far out there as my husband. So I thought, like, he just led the way. And so I thought anything that I can do is just that is fills in that safety net. But because I was in so much gratitude for him, instead of focusing on the pain of losing him and the frustration and the anger and the victim mentality of why is this my life? This isn't fair, all of that kind of stuff that, of course, I have felt. But I was in such beautiful gratitude that that was the first time I actually felt him come to me in a dream. And it was such a beautiful, beautiful message. In fact, I contacted Mark right away. I woke
Mm.
up from that. So it
Mm.
was, that's one thing that we have to remember. Gratitude is receivership. And when we have that gratitude, we're connecting to the spirit realm. So loss does deepen our focus on
Mm.
what's important. That's the message I'd like to share.
Oh, thank you, Vicky. That's beautiful. And I'm so glad that you were able to connect with Mark because it makes a big, I'm sorry, with Scott, because I know it makes a very big difference in your own healing to get that confirmation from him directly,
Yeah.
right? Very
Yeah.
reassuring, I'm sure. But you're a strong, oh my God, you're such an amazing woman. I am so, so blessed to know you, Vicky. I absolutely mean that. You are such a, I love you dearly, sister, and you're in my heart. I know this is a tough time for you. It felt like a punch in the gut to me, quite honestly. It's tough. It still it's just all you can do is shake your head because you just feel like someone's supposed to be there, and they're not, and it's tough. It's tough, but
Yeah,
you're
when
not
you reach to
alone.
the pillow next to you and they're
Yeah,
supposed to be there, yes, I
yeah,
agree. That is,
yeah.
very challenging.
But you're not alone, and you know that you're very much loved, and you have a lot of support, especially right here at Goldfish Report. So, and all of our viewers too, Vicky. So you know that. I hope you know that, right?
Amen.
And Mark, thank you so much for joining. Do you have any final statements or questions or anything that comments that you wanted to make before we close out tonight? Or reading or message or maybe a message or something. I don't know.
Well, we're talking a lot about prayer. My personal prayer, just on a regular day basis, is real short. So I pray for faith, grace, forgiveness, and strength, because I need all of them in equal or somewhat similar parts as the day goes on. And last, try to be present. Be present with the people that you love, and be present with the people that need you to be there for them.
That's a wonderful message. Just like these bite of the apple, we get so distracted. It was the rudest thing. I thought when people started, like, I would be in a room with people and they'd just be taking calls and texts from other people. And I'm like, excuse me, I came all the way here to be with you, and you're like ignoring me. Like you're so busy that you have to be, and this wasn't business. This was a friend. And they were just on the phone texting, and I'm like, goodbye. You don't have time for me. And that's what it's doing. It's interfering and interrupting, and definitely interfering with the relationships. It's a
Yes.
great. Thank you for ending on that, because it's a great reminder. I don't think we are present enough. So my final comment is, I'm blessed to know these two beautiful people, and I'm so grateful that you joined me tonight. And I look forward to you returning again
We be here next Friday.
next
And so it
Friday.
is.
And to the viewers, thank you for being here. And please come by next Friday night, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, with your questions for a loved one, or perhaps for a question you would like to try to get some insight for. So until then, everyone, enjoy, have a wonderful weekend, have a safe weekend. And this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.